Hello, CC families, and welcome back for another year of Essentials of the English Language. This is week 1, and we are going to give an overview and an introduction to all the material that we are going to be covering over the next 24 weeks. So we're going to give an overall picture today, and then we will dive in deeper in subsequent weeks into each of the different topics. So who here is a first year, second year? We can even have some third years, which means that they've done this twice already, because this is a 3-year program where you do the exact same thing every year with a few differences in the writing. But one of the main things I want you to keep in mind is throughout the year, you do not compare yourself to others. If you're a first year and you find yourself saying, how do the other students know all of this? Remember, they've done it already. Sometimes they've even done it twice. So it's okay that you don't know what they know. So instead of comparing yourself to others, compare yourself to yourself and how far you've come. I want you to remember that being in a group of kids that have different experiences is a good thing. So think about if you're going to go on a hike. Do you want to go with everybody who's brand new and has never been on that trail before? No, it would be fun to go with someone who's hiked that trail before, and that's your second year. Those kids have already done the trail once, so they know some of the ins and outs. And then you have your third years, and they're the ones who have hiked this trail a few times, and they have studied the plants and animals that are native to the area, and they can almost be a guide for you. So that's what it's like being in class. You will have classmates who have already studied the grammar and the writing, and you'll have the opportunity to learn from them too. So for those of you who are new, you may be wondering, what exactly is Essentials all about? Well, we are going to spend time each week learning about English grammar, writing, and playing math games. So when it comes to grammar, why do we think that grammar is important? Well, first and foremost, the Bible tells us that words are important. Does anyone know any scriptures that talk about our words? Here are some. Proverbs 15:28. The heart of the godly thinks carefully before speaking. Proverbs 12:18. The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. And Proverbs 18:4. A person's words can be life-giving water. Words of true wisdom are as refreshing as a bubbling brook. So what are some of the things that we use words for? That's right, we use them to tell stories, to have conversations, to get to know people, give directions, read a recipe, ask for help, getting to know God, and sharing the gospel. So I hope that while we are studying the grammar of English, you will see that there's purpose behind it, even when it is sometimes hard and confusing and sometimes a little frustrating. But remember why it's important. It's important because God has told us that it's important, and you can do it. So warning, parents, kids, everyone, the first few weeks of Essentials are going to be overwhelming. It is like taking a sip from a fire hose. So take a deep breath. If this is your first year, remember, you will get all this information every year for 3 years. You do not need to know all of it this year. You really shouldn't memorize everything this year. And parents, please remember that you know your students best. You know them better than anyone else. So it is your job to scale this to what they can do so that it is not overwhelming. So let's imagine that we are going to take out a 1,000-piece puzzle, and I'm going to just dump it on the floor. Now, would it be reasonable for me to tell you to do it in 15 minutes? No, that would be crazy. What about if we did it in an hour? No, you can't do a 1,000-piece puzzle in an hour. So what are we going to do? Where do we start? Well, we're going to start by turning all the pieces over. And as we do, we're actually not trying to put the pieces together just yet. We're looking at the pieces and we're familiarizing ourselves with them. Okay, so then we're going to find the edge pieces, because those are the ones that are going to make it easy, and it's going to give us a frame that then we can fill in. And for essentials, our frame, all those edge pieces of a puzzle, is chart A. So we're going to group our pieces together, and then the groups of pieces are going to be charts that you'll learn throughout the year. We have charts for verbs and for nouns and for pronouns and all the charts you could ever want. But chart A is where we're going to start. And so over the course of the year, we're going to learn how to make 112 unique sentence classifications. Does that sound like fun? What if I told you we're going to make 112 cupcakes, unique cupcakes? Would that sound more fun? I mean, it might be a lot of work and it might take a lot of time, but it probably wouldn't be hard because cupcakes are fun. So we are going to take 4 different types of cupcakes. So we have vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and funfetti. And then we're going to have 4 different icings: vanilla, funfetti, chocolate, and strawberry. And we're going to have 7 toppings. So we'll have rainbow sprinkles and chocolate sprinkles and gummy bears and Oreos and M&Ms and cherries and marshmallows. So if I got to make my own cupcake, I would probably choose like a yellow cupcake with chocolate frosting and chocolate chips. What would you choose? So do you think we could make 112 different unique cupcakes with just these ingredients? All right, let's try. So we're going to start with a yellow cupcake. And let's pretend I made a ton of them. We have a bunch. We have as many as we need. And I'm going to put vanilla icing on one and then add my first topping. So I'm going to add one of these 7 toppings. Let's say I pick rainbow sprinkles. So I have a yellow cupcake with vanilla icing and rainbow sprinkles, and that is my very first unique cupcake. So how many unique cupcakes can we get using the yellow cupcake and the vanilla icing if we use only one topping? That's right, we can get 7 because there's 7 different toppings. All right, now let's stick with our yellow cupcake and move on to the next icing. We'll do funfetti next. And so we could do the same thing where we get the yellow cupcake, the icing, and the 7. So that means for each of the different icings using the same yellow cupcake and the same 7 toppings, we're going to get 7 different cupcakes for each icing, which is a total of 28. Now, if we follow that same process and do it for each of our different cupcakes, our yellow, our chocolate, our strawberry, our funfetti, then we're going to get 28 unique cupcakes from each of the bases. And that's going to equal 112 total. So we were able to make 112 unique cupcakes. But how many components did we actually use? So we had 4 cupcakes, we had 4 icings, and we had 7 toppings. So how many is that? That's right, it's 15. So we only used 15 components. And that's the same way that sentences are going to work. So this is our chart A. This is, if you're a first year, this is your goal, to memorize this chart. We're going to come back to it almost every single week. Everything is based off of this one chart. So we have our 4 structures, which are our cupcakes. And then we have our 4 purposes, which is our icing. And then we have our sentence patterns, which is our toppings. So we are going to go through what each of these are very briefly, because we're going to come back to this and really focus on each one of these components later in the year. But I want to give you an overview, and then we're going to watch a video that has songs and chants that help us memorize chart A much easier than if you just wanted to look at the paper and try and memorize it, because songs and chants make it so much easier. So our first is the sentence structure. So sentence structure street, we have simple, which has one independent clause and it expresses a complete thought. Compound contains at least two independent clauses and is connected by a coordinating conjunction. Complex has one independent clause and at least one dependent or subordinate clause. And compound complex, which contains at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent or subordinate clause. Next, we have our purposes. And the purpose of the sentence is what job is it supposed to do? So we can have declarative. It makes a statement and ends with a period. We have exclamatory, expressing strong emotion and ends with an exclamation point. We have interrogative, which asks a question and ends with a question mark. And imperative, which expresses a command and ends with a period or an exclamation point. Our next part of Chart A that we're going to learn are the patterns. And so for right now, all you need to do is remember the song and the patterns, the 7 different patterns. But because I'm not exactly sure who's watching this, I want to go through and just let you know what each of the abbreviations means. This is not something you need to memorize right now. If you're a first year, you're going to just memorize the song. So the S is the subject. The VI stands for verb intransitive. VT is verb transitive. VL is verb linking. DO is the direct object. IO is the indirect object. PN is the predicate nominative. PA is the predicate adjective. OCN is the object complement noun. And OCA is the object complement adjective. All of these components will have their own week where we will dive down deep into them. So every sentence can be divided into 2 parts. We are going to have a subject and we're going to have a predicate. So the subject is the part of the sentence about which something is being said. So it's typically a person, a place, a thing. It's a noun usually, not always. And then the predicate or the verb is the part of the sentence that tells us about the subject, what the subject is doing or what it is. And that's kind of the heart of the sentence because it's if you think of a beating heart, the pumping, the action, that's what the predicate is the action of the sentence. And then we're going to have 5 parts of a sentence. Every sentence will start with a capital letter. It'll end with an end mark. It will have a subject, a predicate, and it will make complete sense. Okay. And then the last part of Chart A are the 8 parts of speech. So in the video, you're going to learn a chant, but the 8 parts of speech are noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, conjunction, interjection, preposition, adjective.
Hello CC families. I'm going to go over Chart A and the different ways that we learned in class to remember all the pieces of Chart A. You can choose to do it however you want, but these are the ways that are familiar to me and this is how I presented in class. So we're going to start at the top with our 4 sentence structures. We did simple, compound, complex, compound, complex, simple, compound, complex, compound, complex. We're going to move down to the 4 purposes. So our 4 sentence purposes are declarative, exclamatory, interrogative, imperative. Declarative, exclamatory, interrogative, imperative. When we did the 7 sentence patterns, we learned it to the tune of 3 blind mice. So that goes like this. SVI, SVTDO, SVLPN, SVLPA, SVTIODO, SVTDOOCN, SVTDOOCA, SVTDOOCA. And then we can take those sentences, those example sentences, and we can put those into the same tune. So that goes like this. Jesus wept Jesus loves me. Jesus is God. Jesus is holy. Jesus made me a crown. Jesus calls himself master. Jesus calls himself holy. Jesus calls himself holy. So next we have our 8 parts of speech, and I don't have anything pretty up here to help us remember it like all my other little visuals, but we have a little chant to remember it too. 8 parts of speech. 8 parts of speech. Woo! 8 parts of speech. 8 parts of speech. Noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, conjunction, interjection, preposition, adjective. 8 parts of speech. 8 parts of speech. Woo! 8 parts of speech. 8 parts of speech. Noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, conjunction, interjection, preposition, adjective. And then the last thing on here are the 5 things that every sentence has to have. So I had students hold up their hand in front of them so that they're looking at the back of their hand. And think about a sentence. And the way we read a sentence, we start at the beginning. So every sentence has to start with a capital letter. It has to end with an end mark. It has a subject and a verb, and it makes complete sense. So every sentence has to start with a capital letter, end with an end mark. It has a subject and a verb, and it makes complete sense. So that was the memory work, like all compressed. I'm going to go back and quickly talk about the images and kind of explain what they mean. So we have, for our simple structure, we have a basic house. That house can stand all by itself. It could be on farmland, it could be in the city, it could be in your neighborhood. It's just a basic house. And so a simple sentence has a subject and a verb and can stand all on its own. And so we just are representing it with a simple basic house. And when we do our hand motions, we have a single fist in front of us because it's just one, it's simple. When we move to compound, now we have 2 houses that are the same. They could be independent, but they are connected by a fanboy's fence. And so they are joined together. So that when we do our hand motions, we have simple and then compound, because now we put 2 together to make it compound. And the other thing that you hear there is compound, and we are pounding one fist into the other. So that's another way to kind of pull those 2 together. Our complex sentence, there is a balcony on that simple sentence. And so if you think about it, you can't have a balcony without a house. You have to have the house first, and then you put a balcony on it. You don't just see a balcony floating around someplace. So that balcony depends on the rest of the house. And when we get to complex sentences, we will learn that what makes it complex is that it has a dependent clause that can't stand all by itself. It has to join with an independent clause. And then finally, we have our compound complex. Oh, and I forgot the complex. The complex motion we do is just complex. And the basic idea behind that is the sound of complex and flexing our muscles just to get that sound connected together there. And then finally we have compound complex, and we're just putting it all together. So we have 2 independent houses that are joined together by that fanboy's fence. So those are our 2 independent clauses making a compound sentence. And then one of those independent clauses has that balcony on it that can't stand all by itself. It has to be connected to something else. And that is our dependent clause that makes it a compound complex sentence. And that comes much later in the year, but that's just the general idea of why these images are what they are, just to help you remember them. And then obviously with our hand motions, we do compound complex, and we just join all of those hand motions together, compound complex. When we move on to our purposes, I've chosen images to help remind us of different jobs that are similar to the purposes our sentences can have. So, declarative. Declarative just means that the sentence is giving you information. It's just the facts. And the image I have here is of a woman giving you the weather. So when you're watching the news and the weather reporter is telling you the weather, he or she is just giving you the information. Declarative. We move down to exclamatory, and these sentences are said with emotion, and they will end with an exclamation mark. And who better to represent exclamatory sentences but cheerleaders, because their job is to get the fans all excited and cheering for their team. And they do that loudly and with lots of emotion. So they represent our exclamatory sentences. When we move down to the interrogative sentences, we have a detective, and he has his magnifying glass. And that helps us remember that interrogative sentences are sentences that are asking questions, just like a detective has to ask questions to figure out the puzzle or the crime or whatever it is that he's investigating. And then finally, we have our imperative sentences. And here we have a drill sergeant, and he's telling you what to do. And imperative sentences are commands. So that image of a drill sergeant goes along well with imperative sentences. The thing to keep in mind is that even a polite command is still an imperative sentence. So if I ask you to please do something, then I'm still giving you a polite command, but it still is imperative. Please put away your dishes. So those are the reasons why I chose these different images to help us remember the things on chart A. We have our structures represented by houses. We have our purposes represented by the jobs that people do. And we have mice representing our patterns because we sing Three Blind Mice. I don't have anything for 8 parts of speech. Sorry, I haven't been creative enough to come up with anything. And then we have the hand for the 5 parts of the sentence. So I hope that helps you to be able to remember all the things that go on chart A as you move forward through this year and try to commit it to memory.
Okay, so next we are going to take a look at chart B. So chart B is not a chart that you are going to memorize. Chart B is more for attending and finding sentences and kind of understanding how you can take a structure and get 28 unique sentences from that one structure. So remember, it's kind of like we're starting with a simple structure or a yellow cupcake. We have 4 different icings or 4 different purposes, and then we have the sentence patterns. That equals 7 for each, which is a total of 28. And so if we're looking at chart B, we're going to see at the top that it is a simple structure. So it is one independent clause and it expresses a complete thought. And so now let's take a look at the 4 different purposes. So we have declarative in the top left, and then exclamatory in the top right, interrogative in the bottom left, and imperative in the bottom right. So how does the top left, the declarative, compare to the top right? That's right, they're the exact same sentences, but now they end in an exclamation point in order to make them exclamatory. Okay, how does the top left compare to the bottom left? That's right, we have taken declarative sentences and we've turned them into questions. So again, the patterns are the same, but the purpose is different. And then we have the top left compared to the bottom right. And the statements have been made into commands. It's the same patterns, just it's the same structure, same patterns, just a different purpose. So remember, for any of the 4 different sentence structures, we can have 4 different purposes, 7 different patterns, 7 different patterns, and that's going to make 28 unique sentences. Thank you, and best of luck this year.